Eureka! Archimedes famously exclaimed after submerging his body in the bath and noticing that the water level rose. In a flash, the previously intractable conundrum of how to measure volume had been solved. This story has seeped into public consciousness so deeply that it has become synonymous with how we think about ideas to this day. Seemingly born out of nothing, great ideas are associated with momentary inspiration, originality celebrated as a hallmark of creativity and innovation. Yet Eureka wasn't a moment after all, but a product of Archimedes' years of mathematical work, the wider research network which he was plugged into, and the great bank of intellectual resources he used along his journey. Much in the same way that Archimedes' breakthrough did not simply spring into life purely in the bath. Every great idea is built on the back of previous ideas, cross-pollinated and recombined iteratively by uncoordinated networks of people. Nowhere is this concept of ideation better explained than in this letter written by Mark Twain, one of America's greatest writers. In 1892, an 11-year-old girl wrote a short story called The Frost King. Both deaf and blind, the feat was quite the accomplishment for young Helen Keller, who would be a future activist and author, acting as a strong inspiration for handicapped people around the world. Upon its publication, however, the story was reported for plagiarism, as it seemed to look strikingly similar to another story published before she was even born. After reading of the ordeal in Keller's own personal memoirs, Twain penned the following letter over a decade later, with words of wisdom which speak to the thread of innovation that has spanned history and pushed the boundaries of civilization. Dear Helen, I must steal half a moment from my work to say how glad I am to have your book and how highly I value it. How unspeakably funny and owlishly idiotic and grotesque was that plagiarism farce. The kernel, the soul. Let us go further and say the substance, the bulk, the actual and valuable material of all human utterances is plagiarism. For substantially all ideas are second-hand, consciously and unconsciously, drawn from a million outside sources. When a great orator makes a speech, you are listening to 10 centuries and 10,000 men, but we call it his speech. It takes 1,000 men to invent a telegraph, or a steam engine, or a phonograph, or a telephone, or any other important thing, and the last man gets the credit, and we forget all the others. These object lessons should teach us that 99 parts of all things that proceed from the intellect are plagiarisms. This letter is incredibly powerful, not just because of its wholesome intent to warm Helen's heart after an event for which she still felt guilt, but for its timeless message. Although undeniably romantic to think of ideas as catalytic moments from which fully formed, wholly original ideas spring to the surface. To think this would misunderstand creativity itself. Trace the historical arc of any invention or knowledge advancement, and one finds long gestations along which previously disconnected ideas and individuals collide together in a cumulative process. Reinforcing Twain's point, no lesser authority than Picasso said that good artists borrow, great artists steal. Mark Twain with a letter for the ages.